Hello, I'm Aaron, and I'm with Joseph, Andrea, and Jason here, and today we'll be interviewing Sanusl. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Aaron.
Yeah, first, could you give us an introduction about yourself?
Yeah, hi, my name is Sanusl Tandun, and I work at Apple. Outside of Apple, I'm a career coach, helping high school students and college students.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So what made you want to pursue this path of helping high schoolers with their careers?
Well, I started from helping my son and my daughter when they were in high school. They are now already working professionally for the last few years. Right? From helping my son and my daughter, I actually learned a lot in some of the challenges, not on the hard skill, but mainly when it comes to how to find a job. And because of that, because I learned so much, I wanted to use this to help other people, now that I'm an empty nester.
Oh, so I take it that you value communication skills and soft skills like that a lot?
Yeah, I think one thing is that particularly as part of the Fremont Union High School district, and also when I started Baco, what I learned is a lot of students, a lot of parents focusing on the hard skill, academic skill, getting the best grades, However, when you go to the workforce, what's as important is how your soft skill, and how you communicate, how you present. Those are the areas that I feel like the students can really benefit from.
Oh yeah, that totally makes sense. I think my dad also talks about that a lot. Yeah, so seeing that Baco has had so many events with other big companies, I saw on your website that you're gonna have a LinkedIn event soon, and you've also had stuff with Apple and stuff like that. How do you think that having connections with a lot of people can give you these opportunities, and how do you think people should establish these connections?
It's kind of one thing I want to advise the high school students is a lot of professionals, they actually enjoy helping high school students. Using the LinkedIn example, none of my team, my high school team, knew anybody at LinkedIn at the time. When we decided, we said we wanted to do a LinkedIn workshop, one of the team members actually talked to his parents, and then his parents introduced him to somebody at LinkedIn.
Wow.
And that's how we got connected. My other connection is probably because I work at Apple, so I have a lot of volunteers from Apple.
So yeah, I think that really goes back to your first point that communication is really important, right?
Yes, and then my student, what he did is he just sent an email, a cold email, said, "Oh, I get to know your name from my father. We are thinking about doing this LinkedIn workshop. Would you be willing to become a speaker?" And we got one person immediately said yes.
Wow, that's kind of crazy. Yeah.
And that's a common thing that we face throughout the last 5 years I've been doing this.
Yeah. So just really the importance of communications.
Yeah, and then be comfortable reaching out.
Yeah. I think I agree with that a lot. Jason, you have a few questions too?
Yeah, so sounds like you have kind of a lot of volunteer work.
Yeah.
You talked about Baco, but I also know, I've heard that you also work as a kind of career coach. And so I was wondering, you spend a lot of time probably with students, not only your sons, but also now I'm branching out to people of the local district and community. I was wondering, what do you maybe enjoy about advising and working with high schoolers? And then maybe on the flip side, what are things that you may not enjoy as much?
Yeah, one thing I really enjoy is to watch my students grow. I like to use the term interchangeably between my students and my mentee, right? As an example, one of my high school classmates, his daughter, I met her when she was a freshman in high school. I started mentoring her, and then about 2 weeks ago, she emailed me, say, "Sanusl, thank you very much for all your help. I just want to let you know I'm going, and I'm going to go to Brown this fall." So it also feels very good to get that somebody to thank you, and then to see your students actually have done well.
Yeah, it sounds really amazing, and sounds kind of really, really wholesome, I think.
Yeah.
And as for kind of high schoolers, you work with a lot with high schoolers in the FUHSD specifically. I was wondering maybe why high school students, as opposed to maybe middle school or elementary school?
Yeah, I took the experience from me when I coach my son and my daughter, right? One thing I'm really feel I did not realize at the time is right now I'm still connecting with my son and my daughter. Like when they will feel comfortable talking to me about their jobs. I don't believe that would happen if I did not start with them in high school. I just feel like high school is a very good age to start, right? Because you're still absorbing and you're still learning. And my experience is like also, you need to start as early as possible. By the time you're in college, it's not too late, but still, like the earlier you start, the better it is for you.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, I'm in high school right now, so I can definitely see how kind of you talking about growth and how you really like to see students grow kind of plays into part of why you chose high school students.
Yeah, and I was just to stress that, I work a lot with the students who go to really top tier colleges, which all
Right.
high school students want to go. I don't think it's necessary you need to go to the top tier school to be successful. I feel this is why it's important having a good balance of hard and soft skill. I feel like I know that you can be successful no matter what you go if you have a good balance of both.
Yeah, I love your perspective on that. Is there kind of, I know you talk about kind of hard skills or soft skills as well as kind of, a lot of people emphasizing going to maybe T10 schools. Are there kind of other misconceptions that you think people in the district have?
Well, like as an example, going to a community college. I feel like there's a mindset that you are not successful if you go to community college. However, there's various reasons why a student might decide to go to a community college before they pursue a four-year college. I had a mentee who just swear by she went to De Anza and then later on she went to Berkeley, and more than one that I met. They were able to learn a lot from community colleges, which they were not able to do in, like, say, when they were high school, like continue to work, juggling having to work and also having to stay take classes in community college.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I mean, I know personally, I actually recently wrote an article about community colleges, and so great to hear that kind of your perspective and how people should be kind of valuing community colleges. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and I'll pass the floor to Joseph.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Sanusl, for the thoughtful responses. I know you mentioned that you're a career coach, so my question was, could you elaborate on what you do as a career coach and the specifics of it?
Yeah, one thing I learned, like say, my son is older than my daughter by 2 years old. When my son went to Berkeley, I had no clue about what a recruiting process at university look like. Right? It's a very set process where we start maybe in August and September. You need to get your resume ready by then. Because a lot of companies, they go recruit in the fall. And there's a reason behind that, because they want to have all the pool of candidates that are available. By the time you go, if you did not start early, by the time you go in the spring, you learn that, how come like some of the companies like Apple, Google, how come they do not come to my college? So because of that, I learned that, you really need to understand the entire recruiting processes. You also need to understand, you need to have like your resume ready ahead of time. You need to practice. Right? Many people probably have not done a lot of interviews when they were in high school. And all of a sudden you go to college. All of these things do need practice, and it takes time. It's very rare to have a candidate who can ace an interview in their first one. Typically, it takes 2 or 3 interviews, and typically, a student's first job is not going to be a Google or Apple or Facebook. Typically, they start with a more entry-level job, and then they build up based on that, which is why it's very important to start early.
Okay, thank you. I know you said practice was a big portion of nailing an interview. Would you say that would be your biggest piece of advice you would give to current and future high schoolers who may be watching, or do you have a different piece of advice?
I would just say, go look up. There's a lot of information. Go to your college career center. We do help students with the mock interviews. We set up like how to write your resume, how to do interviews, right? And I think there's also there's a lot of information in the website that you can Google.
Okay, thank you. Now it's my final question, so I'll pass it on to Andrea.
Yeah, hi, Mr. Sanusl. It was really interesting to hear how your children and you parenting them led you to go on with this helping other high school students. So I was wondering, you said your children helped you help other high school students, but what made you start? Could you elaborate a little bit more about what made you start Baco specifically?
Well, because I had different experience in my son and my daughter, where it feels like it was always much more difficult for my son compared to my daughter. And so I had very different experience. And then I said, one day I just said, oh, I learned so much, I want to help other people. So I started working with some international college students, and I learned they had the similar experience. Their experience is the same thing. You imagine somebody coming from China or somebody coming from Taiwan, coming to the U.S., right? The U.S. is a new environment for them. They are busy with like transitioning, understanding how to adapt to the U.S. culture. So the looking for jobs might not be the most important thing for them. They might not realize that. And then it comes like, when I first started to work with the students, they will come like say maybe a lot of students are already either graduated or about to graduate. But then they do not have that experience. All they have is their GPAs. And then one thing is I learned is that that's not enough, right? I want to just use an example. When my daughter was at Berkeley, she had a 4.0 GPA at Berkeley. I was very proud of her. I learned there was a colleague at Apple who is a recruiting intern. So I went to her. I was so proud. Oh, I heard that you're looking for a software engineer intern. Right? My daughter is like a student at Berkeley. She has a 4.0. Would you interview her? The first question this manager asked me, does she have a test diagnostic experience? I was like shocked when I heard that. What do you mean? She's just a student. She knows Python, she knows Java. This manager, nope, I'm only looking for someone with a test diagnostic experience. I then asked her, do you have difficulty recruiting students because you're looking for such a specific skill set? She said, no, I got plenty to choose from. Right, so that was a big aha to me. Right? And fortunately, I want to say, not all managers are like that. And many, it's good that to hear that. A lot of managers, like they, depending on where they are, a lot of managers are more open. Because they understand a lot of college students, they're just starting out, they're looking for their first experience. Same with the high school students, right? I had a high school student at Baco in 2020, right in the midst of the COVID. She came to me, she said, Sanusl, I wanted to apply for an internship. Can you help me? I said, okay. But then inside my mind, I thought that, oh, it's highly unlikely that she will get a job. But guess what? She would just cold email like companies, and then there was one company interview her, and she got that job as a high school student, a 10th grader at the time. Right? And then she was doing some kind of data analysis job at the company, at the startup. So like I said, it's doable unless you try it. Once you try it, you'll learn a little bit more. You might not be able to get your dream job. You might not be able to get everything you want the first try. But going through that process, you'll be learning a lot by just going through the process.
Yeah, I think that it's really relevant. What you said is really relevant, especially the part about kids only focusing on their academics and not really getting the real life experience they need. You mentioned that you work with a lot of children, not only nationally but also internationally. Do you have any parenting advice? Because you also raised 2 successful children. Do you have any parenting advice for parents?
Yeah, the parenting advice I have for many parents, not just international parents of international students, but also parents here. Please do not underestimate any jobs. Right? Particularly, a lot of parents and also students, when it comes to their first starter job for high school students, they are like, they might not need the money. Sometimes they think that the retail job is not important. You know, my son, his first job was at McDonald's as a retail, as a cashier. That McDonald's job actually helped him because he will talk about his McDonald's job in his college application. And I believe like when it comes to his GPA and his SAT score, I don't think it's super strong. I think it helps him to apply, and then it helps him to get into Berkeley and UCLA. And of course, we never know what's the reason, but I do feel it's important. My daughter had a retail job in a yogurt store. Imagine like you were the only one at a yogurt store. What happens when the machine breaks down? You need to be able to manage it. What happens if you have customers that are not happy with you? Somebody's like maybe yelling or do something else, right? So there's a lot of things you can learn from the retail store. Also coaching job, like say a lot of summer camp, like sports, helping kids. What happens if you are like if you work at kids of soccer as an example? You have all these 5-year-olds running around and they were fighting with each other. How do you manage that? So there's a lot of like a soft skill, valuable lesson, regardless of what you do, even in volunteer job as well.
Yeah, that was really insightful, thank you. I think a lot of parents need to hear that as well.
Yeah, I just want to add one thing as well for international students. I met a lot of international students, particularly from China. One thing I learned is like it's a different world out there. What's important in China or in other countries versus what's important in the US is very different. In countries like China, you go to the Gaokao, I think that's what they call it. Based on the score, you will decide which school you go to, and then based on that, let's decide what job you go to, and your compensation is somehow tied to that. So the mindset is I need my son or my daughter to go to the best #1 school, #2 school, right? They then send their kids to US, maybe abroad for colleges. They are say, okay, let's just make sure you get the best grades. Let's say, I do not want you to work because I want you to focus on studying. Based on the example I shared earlier, it's a challenge because later on they then found out, oh, my son or my daughter graduated from, let's say, even the Ivies or the Berkeley, right? They are having difficulty getting even interviews because all they have is their GPAs. If you want to work like abroad, maybe that's different, but if you want to work in US, that's no longer enough. That's the reality.
Yeah, I think that really hit close to home, and not only international students, but also people with immigrant parents who aren't familiar with the US system. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Do you have anything else you would like to add before we end?
No, I think we share a lot. Right? Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you for letting us interview you.
Yeah, today, thank you so much for coming, and it was really interesting learning about how your children inspired you to go on this path, and the advice you'd give to us and parents. Thank you for coming, and thank you for listening.
You're welcome.